welcome everyone to our kickoff webinar for 2024, Boost the Morale, Productivity and Production of Your Dental Practice. My name is Beth. I am the manager of the core quality team at Rev Dental. Today's topic is personally a passion of mine. My background is in leadership development, so I'm very, very excited to be discussing how you can apply leadership to your practice, development, training, all of that. I've worked with governments, I've worked with bankers, I've worked with HR, I've worked with private and public, done it all. And I am especially very, very excited to introduce our guest speaker today, Lori Irvine. Lori is experienced with organizational development, leadership training, fostering synergistic teams, and team dynamics. Lori has a wealth of knowledge. When we have these conversations, Lori and I get very engaged. We have some fantastic conversations when we get talking. And she's been working with many different dental offices over the years. So she's incredibly experienced in applying this leadership tactic skills to the dental office. And I am looking forward to picking her brain for your benefit. I'm going to kick us off straight away with the first question. How do you boost the morale and productivity of your staff? How do you keep your current staff motivated and engaged?
Well, the thing about keeping people engaged and motivated is more about how you ignite the fire within them rather than under them. So it's more about what is it that motivates them to be there? What are their key drivers to work at your practice? So I think tapping into what motivates and engages people in the practice, I think is a skill that you need to develop with respect to what is it that excites them? What are the reasons that they come to work? What are things that make them happy or feel like they serve their purpose every day? So part of that is getting to know who your people are, getting to know who they are as people before they are employees. So I always say, imagine them without their scrubs on, which sounds kind of weird, but at the same time, it's what are they like as people when they come to the practice? Are they married? Do they have kids? Do they, what are things that excite them? Are they into music? Are they learning skills outside of the practice? What do they want to do to grow in the practice? What are their goals? So I think a short story is to try to figure out where they're coming from and see what you can do to align that with how they can do the best that they can and serve their purpose at your practice, to find out how you can mutually benefit the practice and the employee at the same time.
So I smiled there when you say, like, see them out of their scrubs. I used to work in a hospital and we would be in scrubs, mask, everything. And then you'd go outside into the real world and you'd see people on the street and it's like, is that you, Susan? You have brown hair? I didn't know that. And it's quite, they just sort of rang a bell, but yeah, absolutely. So getting to know your people outside of the workplace. It also reminds me of like, when you're in school and you see your teacher outside of school and it's like, oh, this is weird. You don't belong outside of school. And I think that when it comes to the workplace, what you're saying is workplace, you need to know your people. How can you motivate them and get them engaged if you don't know who they are? That's in essence.
So when they start, here's what I tell people, and I think a lot of things get missed. So before people started a practice, it's important to know, where do they come from? Why do they want to join your practice? What is it that they want to contribute to the practice, and how does that mutually benefit? So when people say, well, the best way to not pass judgment or make preconceived notions about people is to ask them straight away. All of a sudden, you're going to be working with somebody. If you're a dentist, it'd be a great idea to say, okay, it's great to meet you. You're my assistant now. I'm going to be with you daily for 6, 7, 8 hours. So, where did you come from? What do you want to learn? What inspires you? Those kind of things, I think, not only show acknowledgement, but it also helps facilitate the relationship moving forward, right? So it's a mutual exchange of value to have that person and to retain that person according to what your purpose is, what theirs are, and how that aligns with the practice. I think that's key.
Mutual exchange of value. I really like that. that resonates quite strong, because what you're saying there, when you say mutual exchange, is it's not actually just about you getting to know them. They need to get to know you as well. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, because I mean, human behavior relies on the relationships you have with people and the trust that you build. So why not start that with, what is the foundational thing? What do I know about this person? What do I know about their unique abilities? What do I know so far about what excites them, or what makes them feel uncomfortable, what's appropriate, what's not? And the more you move along that process, you can save a lot of time and a lot of tension, a lot of angst by finding out for real what somebody's like, especially if you're going to be having a relationship with them moving forward. And if they're with you, and the ultimate goal is to do what you can for the practice, right? So you're all working for the same purpose, but what is it, and how can you work on your unique abilities, their unique abilities, in order to be able to provide the best experience for the patient, which is what we're all there for, right?
Yeah. So you say we're all working for the same purpose. And I think this is something that, from my experience, we often miss. And when you're saying get to know your people, get to know what their likes are, their dislikes are, what are their goals, this is where I think there's often a disconnect of, are we all working for the same purpose? Because often when you're a dental practice owner, your goal is to create an amazing, wonderful dental practice that's bursting to the seams and always has new patients and is amazing. Everyone stays and everyone retains. Their goal may not be that. Their goal may be, I want to get, a safe employment so that I can go home and spend time with my family. It could be something completely different.
Absolutely. And a lot of times that's something that's missed. So a lot of times we go along with what our work ethic is and what our purpose is, what our achievement drive is, and what our goals are. What we sometimes miss is that not everybody has the same goals, purpose, and drive that we have. So for us, we may say, you may be working with somebody where sees this job as a stepping stone. There might be some people that see this job as, okay, this is one more step to be a hygienist, or maybe eventually a dentist. There's other people that say, you know what, I want to just step into the dental field and see what that's like. You have other people, and more, you're seeing that there's a lot of people, especially in the admin department, that come from different areas that don't have any dental background. So to find out where people are coming from, where they are right now, and where they're headed, is great information as to how you manage and how you support your team member. Right?
Now, here's one I can hear people thinking, well, hang on a minute, that I'm paying them to do a job. Why does what they think matter to me? When I have my vision, I've employed them to I'm paying them to do this job. If they want to, use this job as a stepping stone, isn't that a bad thing?
Well, as long as everybody knows ahead of time what the vision is of the practice. So to start with that is the owner has to first of all figure out and know and clearly define what their vision is of the ideal team, the business, and the patients that they want to serve. Once they know that, it's a lot easier for an office manager or someone else to recruit somebody into the position so that they can align, this is what I want for my career, this is what I want to do in the next 3 to 5 years. Does this align with the core values and what the owner needs for what's going to happen at this practice? So making sure that everybody's on the same page with respect to, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to sign up for, this is what's being offered, and to be able to actually honor those expectations and those promises, then I think that's a good start with respect to, well, this is how we work with the practice. We know that this person wants to advance and grow. We know that this person is just going to do and cover this for a while. So those things, and they're different for every person. And I think it's important to acknowledge that from the get-go so that you make the right choices when you hire, you make the right choices when you promote, and you make the right choices when you have to make a change, depending on whether or not you're growing or scaling down. And every dentist has a different vision of where they're going, depending where they are in their career, whether they're starting out or they're finishing. Right. And so who they bring in to support them in that journey that they have within their careers is something that needs to be shared so that everybody is putting in the best that they can and everybody understands and serves everybody's purpose as well as the practice. And then everybody wins, right? As long as it's understood ahead of time.
Yeah, you've touched on a few. I'm writing my notes down here because you've touched on a few powerful things there. You've said vision of where you're going. And I think that's something like when I, as a manager, oh man, the beginning of every year when they say, okay, what's this year going to look like? Where are we going? I think the point of, or the making that conscious effort to actually sit down and go, where am I going? What is my vision? Do I really care about that? Am I on the right path? And then you talked about another point there. I can't remember your words exactly, but you mentioned every person serves a purpose. And I think from where we say, like, isn't it like, don't I want my staff to be sticking around forever and staying in the same job forever? Not necessarily, because the purpose might change. And if you are growing and developing and you know what your staff are wanting, what their thoughts and, you know, what their goals are, you can then fit them better into this vision. We were talking earlier, so I do have something actually a little visual to prepare, and I think this analogy fits in really well when we talk about a dragon boat, right? So Lori, I'm just going to share this image and you tell me what you were saying about the dragon boat, because I thought that was really powerful.
So while you come up with the visual, I'll just add to it. So the dragon boat image is a good one to show that first of all, it shows obviously teamwork. So a boat that size, as you see it there, is something that you cannot row alone. Like you can't drag a boat like that in that size on your own by yourself. So what you need is a team to be able to support that. You need somebody that's going to provide synchronicity, whereas all the paddles go at the same time in synchronicity. And so in order to be able to do that is if you have certain people that are pushing hard and using their effort and their support to move forward, and it's going that way, that's great. But if you have other people that aren't in alignment with that, and they're not supporting it, or they don't know the direction of where is the finish line, then there's confusion among, well, how do we get there? How do we know how to get there? What is the direction we're going in? What do we need? Do we put like the people with the expertise of the power in the middle with the strength in the middle? We need somebody to steer somewhere else. We need somebody to keep beat that's good with rhythm. Not everybody is. And so how do we do that in the team that we have of the 20 people that are here on this boat to be able to go from point A to point B, knowing what point B looks like, knowing and being excited about getting to point B, right? And being engaged in the process of getting there, and knowing what do we need to do to support each other, knowing that we can't paddle that alone without each other to be able to get from A to B. So that's the key. And it's a simple analogy of how to get there, and your vision being your destination,
finish line.
Yeah. And then your the way that you operate moving forward is who's the right person on the boat? Where do they need to be on the boat? Do they have to be the same? No, please, thank you. No, we need everybody that's different to be able to move the boat forward according to where you're sitting, what you can bring, and to be able to do that in synchronicity so that it makes it easy for everybody, not easy for some people and hard for other people. So I think that's a great analogy, Beth. Good stuff.
Yeah, I love this one. I think I can just remember my own days in the dragon boat, and we would be zigzagging down the thing, and I was pedaling wrong. What are we doing? What's going on? And then I also found this video, image which I thought was really funny, because sometimes you sink a little bit, but everyone has fun doing it, right? As long as you're all on board, right? No one's leaving this ship; they're staying on board. So
well, yeah, as long as they're invested in it. There's people that do not want to go in the same direction on the boat. They need to be on another boat, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, and that's okay. That's a really important thing. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely fantastic. I think when we're talking about vision, you need to understand your own vision, and you need to know what your team has also got in their minds as well. What are their goals? Because everyone will have different goals in mind. Everyone will have different objectives in mind. If I'm right, if I'm summarizing this, the first thing is you need to know them. You need to know where everyone's coming from. You need to know where you're coming from. You need to be able to have that vision in mind. And a vision more than I want to be an amazing dental practice. I think that's an important one as well. It can't just be I want to be an amazing dental practice, because everyone wants that. But the vision of what type of dental practice are you focusing on? Orthodontics? Are you focusing on general, dentistry? Do you want to be big? Do you want to be small? Do you want to have a lot of new patients, a lot of turnover? Do you want to have a few new patients and hold them on for a really long time? I think those sorts of questions, when we talk about vision in a dental practice, you need to think about for yourself. That's yours. That's unique to yourself. So we have our vision. How? Like, now that I know what they want and I know what I want, how do I bring these people into my vision? Because I want them to be engaged in my vision. I want them to be on my ship. I want to be on board. So how do I bring them on board? How do I actually do that?
Well, the simple thing is, once you create your vision statement, then you have to decide what do I need as the qualities of the people that I have to bring in order to establish and be able to achieve my vision. So if I already have people that are people-focused people that are really good at connecting, let's say in the admin department, for example, we have a couple people that are task-focused, and they're really good at working on insurance. They're really good at doing all the admin function. They're really good at all that kind of thing. But what they have to work towards is their people skills. So maybe their people skills aren't as great as their task-focused skills. So if you're going to bring in somebody for the admin department, instead of cloning the person that you already have there that's very good at task-focused things, it's probably better to get in some of there who's good at relationship building, who's good at greeting, and that comes natural to them. So that would be a great combination to have in the admin team, as somebody that's task focused, people focused. They can both do the same jobs, right? Obviously they can cross train and both be good at greeting people in tasks, but maybe one is a little bit more, their unique abilities are more towards, and they default more towards doing tasks and being project oriented, where the other person is a little bit better at relationship building, social media, doing reviews, and those type of things. So then when you're thinking about building your team, let's just say if it's just one department, then you're going to look at who do we have? What do we need according to what are the gaps that we have? So identifying those gaps in alignment with the vision of what do we need in order to move the boat forward, if you will, then this is what we're going to look for. So when you're organizing your Indeed ad or whatever you use as to recruit, you're going to say, these are the skills that we need that we don't right now have. Because right now we're already covered here. What are the gaps and what kind of things do we need to fill? And those are the people that we want to be a little bit more laser focused on as good candidates for that role. And I think that needs to be thought about in the ad as well as in the interview process, with whether it's the office manager or the owner.
You bring up a very good point there. There's something else there that I wanted to touch on, and that's you talk about we need the right people for the job. We need to fill the right positions. I think especially in a dental practice when everything just moves so fast, somebody leaves, you just replace them. And you don't really spend much time thinking about, here's an opportunity for me to think about what gaps do I need. That person left, let's just get somebody else on board as soon as we can so that we can get back up and running. And I think what you're saying there, Lori, is you don't rush so quickly. Think about what skills because you don't need to hire someone who was exactly the same as the person you had before. You could hire somebody who's got different skills. Is that what we're saying?
Oh yeah, replacing somebody doesn't mean let's just fill the hole, because we all know that there's times that we've been in a position. This is normal business behavior, is that you want to fill in a hole. There's a gap. We need a person. Let's put out the ad. Let's fill it and let's move on. But we all know that sometimes that doesn't work out so well. So there's a lot of there has to be a bit of a thought process in order to get the return on investment of the time that you spent in deciding who it is the right fit for your place. So it's worth the time to say, okay, what do we need? What kind of qualities do we need? What do we have already? And what do we need to fill the gap that we have? Not just the seat, we want to fill the gap. So the gap is we need these particular skills. We need this kind of person. It's not just about how do we fill the position, because as we all know, it costs a lot of money when we do that wrong. Right?
Yeah.
So in order to do that right, sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it means that you have to do different things, and you have to engage your team and to be able to cover that hole while you can. But you can save a lot of time, effort, energy, and money if you do it in a way that you take your time, you decide what you want, and then you fill the role as per what the needs are, as identified.
Yes. I think we're so quick to go, oh no, I have to act quickly and I have to do this now. It doesn't actually take that long. In my experience, it doesn't take that long to go, okay, I need to fill a gap. Let's do a quick evaluation on what we have, and just take that extra minute to refine exactly what you're looking for. And that extra time, say it takes you an hour or two of just thinking time, that can save you so much more in the long run, because you're going to be looking for the right person, instead of just looking for what you always had before. I'm curious, you said something else there. You talked to your office managers, talked to your staff. So I want to hear from our listeners. How involved are you in the interview and hiring process? Because I think when we did the earlier poll, a lot of people were dental practice owners. There was a few that were dental practice owners of multiple practices. So I'm guessing, my hypothesis is that we do rely on our office managers, but I'm curious to hear, how involved are you in the interview and hiring process? Do you take the lead, or do you just rely on your manager? So you either not involved, office manager handles it. Do you participate, but they take the lead? My staff finds a candidate, but I interview them. Or do you personally find and interview the candidate yourself? So have a think. We've got some results starting to come in. I do think that in my experience, I have a manager who hires on my behalf. And there was probably too many times where I go, just do it. I don't have time right now, just go and do it. And so I think that when I put myself into the dental practice owner's shoes, and I imagine, and I know your practices, everything's chaotic, everything's busy. I can't deal with this today. Just, oh no, we need someone, go and do it, go and deal with it. And I am surprised, actually. So we have a few. We are not involved. So one has an office manager, but most people here find and personally interview their candidates themselves. Oh, and we have some who participate and their office manager takes lead. So leaning actually a little bit of that surprises me. So well done, everybody. It sounds like some of you do actually handle it yourselves, but we do have people who only let their office manager handle it. So I am interested. That is interesting thought. And I think what we're saying here, Lori, is when we talk about how do I get my team on the same vision, step one would be to be involved in the hiring process. And when you do have a gap, to think significantly about how you can find people to fill that gap for the vision that you want. Now, a follow-up question to that, Lori, is what about my team that I already have? I don't want my staff to be leaving. How do I bring the team that I have currently into that vision with me?
Well, first of all, they have to understand what it is. So I think most dental practices, they say, okay, what are you talking about a vision? What do you mean a vision? We want to take care of our patients and then we're good. And then we go home. But the truth is, depending on what the practice is and sometimes it's a corporate practice, sometimes it's a private practice. It could be a big practice, a small practice. Sometimes they offer surgery. Sometimes it's not. So depending on who you are and what you want to bring, I think it's very important to share that with the team. Once the team understands what that is, even if it's something that, that you might have been working with somebody for 20 years, it seems weird, right? Because a lot of times I work with clients that have been in the business and have worked with the same people for 15, 20 years, maybe more, right? But it's not weird to decide what the vision is, because once everybody understands what that is, then they have a little bit more clarity as to how is this going to work moving forward. If we hire people that are new, how are we going to manage the people that are here already? So the best thing to do at that point is, once the vision is established, is to let people know and acknowledge those that have been the loyal employees for all these years. How have they contributed in all these years? Like, what have you brought to the practice with respect to the vision? So if the vision is, we want to provide the best customer experience for the patients, there's nothing like an employee that's been there for 20, 25 years to be able to say, I know all the patients' names, I know where they're coming from, I know everything about their families, I can ask them about things. They come to me and they want to follow up since the last time they were there because they're regulars. Right. So those things are really important to bring forth and acknowledge with your team as to, look how you've contributed to date. This is where we're headed. This is what you've done so far. You can be people that mentor and model behavior moving forward with people that we hire, and you can help be engaged in the process of hiring new people and training new people and onboarding new people. I think it's huge to be able to engage other people that are already at the practice, engaged in understanding of the vision, to be able to model behavior and onboard these people, orient them to the practice, and get them to know other people and involve them in the training. I think that's huge as far as team support and engagement and acknowledgement for people that have been there a while.
Yes, I think so. I've written down some, again, you've said some really powerful things there. Once everyone understands, and I think that's an important thing, where you said they need to know the vision. So it's all very well you going around going, this is my vision, but you do need a way of sharing that with your team. And my thought comes to mind of that old adage, the best time to plant a tree is yesterday, the second best time is today. And I think if I was to take what you said, Lori, and say, how do I do this? I would say, sit down with your team, talk to them. And when you say acknowledge loyal employees, that's really powerful. Your vision doesn't have to be just you. I think that's what you're saying. Bring your staff on board for creating this vision too. Where do they see your practice going? Where do they see your ability to stand out as something? Do they have something that they've been wanting to do, or something that they see themselves as providing for your practice to make it more than what it is now? Is that what you're saying, Lori?
Well, yeah, because a lot of times, and I'm just going from experience, a lot of times there's a disconnect between the people that have been there a long time and the new people coming in. So in order to bridge that gap, I think the best way to do that is engage them in the process. So use what you can about the experience that comes from those that have been there a long time and know the names of all the patients and the dynamics of the practice, as well as let's learn and get to know the people that are coming in. So working with mentorship and being okay and open to those conversations takes away the disconnect and the wall that sometimes comes up between the new ones coming in and the ones that have been there for a long time. And I find that it's great. I'm a full supporter of mentorship, no matter how it looks, right?
Yes.
It doesn't mean that somebody knows more than somebody else. It just means that somebody has more experience in a situation or environment, and to bring somebody in and to be able to help them along the way, and also be open to what they're bringing in as new and innovative ideas. I think that's the key, right? Because then you're getting the best of both worlds, right? Like that's the best way to go.
That is interesting. So we're talking about mentorship, and my first thought is someone who's been there for 20 years mentors the new people and tells them how things work in this practice. But then you said acknowledge what the new person's bringing in as well. It doesn't always have to be one way. And I think often in a dental practice, you get that someone's been there for a long time, and then there's the person who's been there for a little bit less, and then there's the person, and you almost get this hierarchy. And what you're saying is it doesn't have to be that way. The person coming in new brings new and fresh ideas. We're a very fast competitive environment now. We need to make sure that we're keeping up with things and changing and growing. And these new people can bring that powerful information and skill in. And it can like, so in my personal experience, I have mentors all over the place. I have a mentor for when I'm confused about finance stuff. I have a mentor for when I'm confused about leadership stuff. I have a mentor for when I'm confused about sports. There's always somebody who you go to who you're like, hey, can you teach me about this? Can you help me with this? And I think when you get to a point where you and back to what we were saying earlier about understanding where everyone's coming from and their strengths and weaknesses, they can help each other. They can help you. A lot of the time, the front desk staff are far better at customer service than the dentist. And so they can actually help. I actually, in the call quality team, I listened to a call the other day where it was the dentist speaking, and they did not do very well on the phone. And I sort of, you sit in and go, no, let your staff, they need to teach you how to have this conversation. Because you didn't do very well. You're good at doing the dentist stuff, and you're good at talking to them when they're in the practice. But over the phone, your staff are trained. They know what to say on the phone. They know how to do this. So lean on them. Let them teach you, and make it more of a team where everyone's bringing their strengths and every strength is acknowledged. I think that's kind of what you're saying there, if I summarize that.
Well, yeah, and it's building a culture of being appreciative of the mutual exchange of value. And if it means it comes from experience and a long-term relationship with the practice, or it comes from I'm bringing in new ideas and new concepts, I think as long as there is acceptability and adaptability and a willingness to change, right, and adapt, I think that is a good mix and a good combination for success from both sides. And the key success there is of the practice, and that's what everybody's there for. Whether you're new or you've been a long-term employee, I mean, everybody wants the practice to succeed, because if the practice succeeds, then everybody wins, right? Like yes. Everybody's there for the practice and the patients.
Yes. And I think where you say, like, if the practice succeeds, everyone wins, when you understand what your staff's goals are. So I have staff who say to me, Beth, I just want to come in, do my job and enjoy my time here. And then I want to go home at night. And then I have other staff who say, Beth, I want to one day be you. I want to run this. So with these two different types of employees, it's fantastic, because I know when we talk about, everyone being on board and everyone having the same vision, I know that I have somebody who wants to come in and just do, the stuff that's set in front of them, follow the process that we've created, and they will be super, super reliable in making sure that gets done. Typically, these people don't get too emotional about what's going on because they have less emotional engagement, if you say. And then I have others who I will put into training. So I'll say, you want to be me one day? Fantastic. Let's get you there, so that when the opportunity presents itself, you're ready to move into these shoes, and you can actually get this training all done up front. And what happens in the end, 99.9% of the time, is the practice grows, and now you need more people at that higher level who know what they're doing. And what we've trained the right people, and then we have more people who are doing the solid foundational work that we need as well. So go back to what we said earlier, understanding what they want, what their visions are, and then knowing what your vision is, and then coming together on that. And when I say, they tell me, this is what I want, this is where I think it gets a little bit tricky, because we're in a dental practice and we're running around and there's so many things going on. And, it's all very well to say, talk to your staff. How? When? How do you actually structure your day, week, months, years into something that allows for this discussion? How do I actually have these discussions and talk with my staff and bring them on board? But it's sort of similar question. Do you have any tools you can recommend? How do we go from here?
Okay, so with respect to employee communication, and I don't know for sure, like how many people have actual structured performance reviews and development, and how often they happen. And it's different for every practice. But from what I understand, what I would recommend is, the best way to do this step by step would be, before you hire somebody, know who you want that's going to be your right fit according to what the vision is of your practice as established. Number one. When you bring somebody on, make sure that you have a plan in place with respect to the orientation and onboarding of the practice. The worst thing that can happen is somebody shows up and like, who are you, or why are you here? That's not the kind of conversation you want to have with that's not a good opening for somebody that comes into the practice as a new employee. So I would say, take your time to decide who's the right fit. Engage other people, office managers and other people according to their expertise in the hiring process and the recruiting process of that new employee. Once they come in, make sure that you have a training program in place to make sure, and it has to be structured and measurable. It can't be, she's got to learn this, that, whatever. We're going to put her with here, there, whatever. No, it has to be a structured plan that's in place, and it can be something that you can use for every person when they come in. So what is it they're going to learn, and by when? So it has to be SMART goals. They have to be specific and measurable so that you can look at it and you can check in once a week, once every couple of weeks, to make sure that that person is being set up for success according to what the expectations are, according to their role as agreed upon. That's just being fair. By the 3-month probationary period, when that ends, you should be already ready, because of those meetings in between, because of the support that they got throughout. It should be easy to have those probationary meetings to make a decision on whether or not that person is a right fit or not for the practice. Once that happens and that employee is successful in their probationary period, and they're going to stay at the practice, then it's very important to check in with that employee and make sure that their performance and their ability to develop and move forward and grow in the practice is achieved. So that is a two-way situation where you want to acknowledge the employee, but also find out where they are and where they're headed and what their purpose is, and make sure that that lines up with what you're giving them and providing for them according to their needs and the needs of the practice. So that is a structured system of what you want and what you expect from the employee, and that has to be customized according to the needs of the practice, the vision of the practice, the employee handbook, the code of conduct, what the patients require. All those things are very specific and unique criteria that I think needs to be looked at, evaluated, and carried through in order to be able to retain your employees.
I'm going to repeat that because I want to make sure we got that. So take some time. It feels like there's not a lot of time, but take that time to know your vision and know what people you need on board for that vision. And don't just do it alone. You can do it with your team. And I think that in this sense, you will need to carve out some space to have a conversation with your team. And now's a really good time. It's January. Everyone's thinking, 2024, what are we going to do? Now's a great time to sit down with your team and say, where are we going? What do we need? What do we want? Plan with orientation and measurable training. Very interesting, because I think every single job I've gone into, there has not been an onboarding training plan. Now, admittedly, a lot of the jobs I go into, I'm at the management level, so you typically don't have that anyway. But what one of the first things I always do is create one. I think the best person to create the training plan is either the person delivering the training or the person doing the training. And I always have, when I do the onboarding, I have the people doing the training. They get their own book, and they are expected to update that book as they go for the things they didn't understand. If they didn't understand it, they update that book and then, or document. It's never a physical book anymore. But so you get two things. You're preparing for that onboarding. You've created something that you can use again. You said that as well. It doesn't have to be hard to have somebody come on board and train if you use the same tools again and again and again. And the person learning can be the one to update these training guides, and obviously with some support from management. So it's a growing thing and it develops over time. Then you said about, that 3-month check-in. Again, you just have to carve out that time, and it can be difficult. Sometimes I've seen dentists, they will block out a specific time of a specific day. When are you typically less busy? I know that's hard to sometimes think. I'm always busy, but there is a time, maybe first thing Monday morning or last thing Friday night. There are times when you do have less bookings. And I've seen dentists actually in their agenda, in their schedule, will say, this is office time. This is my time where I will sit and think and or talk to my people, and this is my dedicated time. Another thing that we've seen, and at RevUp we highly, highly recommend, is a stand-up meeting once a week. Now, Lori, can you tell us a bit about stand-up meetings?
Well, first I want to just go back, to back up a little bit about the accountability for those meetings in order to make sure that somebody's onboarded properly, right? Mm-hmm. So onboarding properly has to do with, there's an ownership with the practice itself and the employee. So I think it's really important to make sure that the employee understands that they need to own their growth and their ability to be able to perform in the practice ahead of time. So what I say is, and it doesn't have to be the dentist all the time. If there's an office manager, I think that's helpful. But even if it's just like a quick 15 to 20 minute check-in, it doesn't have to be a 4-hour meeting, and it doesn't have to be with the dentist. But what it has to do with is that the employee self-reflects on what are the things that I feel like I mastered according to what was expected of me? What are the things that I need more support with? And where am I lost? 3 things. So that helps them with the ownership of their growth, which I think is a very great way to move an employee forward. That's the kind of employee you want. You want somebody that is able to own their own stuff and be able to communicate that and be able to problem solve with respect to what they need for challenge and what they need to make them what fortifies a good work experience for them. So they have that ownership. It gives them a venue of communication so that if there's something they need to talk about, that they know they have a place to put that, right? And just add it to their agenda. And then it just makes it easier for the office manager or the dentist, according to the training program that's already been developed for everybody, right? So it's like, okay, where are we? What do you need from me? And what do you need to do on your own? And how are we going to organize that in scheduling, right? So I just wanted to make sure to make that point, because this is a lot easier than it sounds, but it's twofold in the sense that you're training the employee, but you're also giving them the understanding that there's an accountability on every employee that works here, that they need to be responsible for their growth and their development. And that's the way that we operate at this practice, right? So I think that was important to mention.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that giving them that opportunity to come to you with those options will make them feel like they own their job a lot more, instead of just always being told what to do, and too often being told off for doing something wrong, which I think we see that a lot as well.
Yeah, it promotes autonomy, right? And most people these days, I mean, that's an important aspect of the job, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And having the ability to come to you, and this comes back to that mentorship discussion of, I always get very sad when I have a staff member say, I didn't think I could come to you and talk to you about that. And I think that's really, really important from the get-go, to create that behavior of the ability for them to come to you and say, this is what I'm struggling with. Or even, I don't know, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Like those sorts of, especially early on, but also later on. And I think if you've come to this and you're watching the recording of this one, I think there is no better time than today to give your chance, give your staff that refresh, that we're gonna do something a bit different this year. This year we're gonna do 1 hour each week, I'm going to reserve time, and I expect you to come and talk to me during that time. Or this week, for 10 minutes a day, we're going to do a stand up at the beginning of every day where we just check in and, and try it. And as you said, Lori, it actually isn't as hard as it sounds to once you just start doing it. And I think this is one thing that we talked earlier, a little bit earlier about tools. What tools can we give our listeners today and those who are going to be watching this recording so they can walk away and go, right, I now have the ability to start this today? Are you talking about
like starting the day? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So when we talk about boosting the morale, productivity, and production of your dental staff, the topic that we're here to talk about, what tools can our listeners walk away with today so that they can start today and start boosting that morale? Now, earlier on, Lori had mentioned there is a job description. So making sure that you've got that powerful job description. And we actually went away and created one. So we can absolutely share that with you. I'll just show you. We've basically just created a template based on what Lori has said. So having a nice job description, which clearly outlines what you're looking for, what your responsibilities are. This is obviously a template. If you are interested in this tool, let us know. Lori, there was a few others that you talked about. I think we went away and created those ones as well. What else did we have?
So the most important thing is, go ahead.
Sorry, creating the vision. You mentioned a lot about creating the vision. So again, our team at RevUp went away and we've got this document, very, very templated. So you can use this to create your own vision. If you are needing help to create that vision, I know that now, Lori, you said it's all very well to have a document like this, but it has to be unique to your practice. So if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, and I think this is the key is that all these things that are templates, all these things that are important are things that need to be customized for your practice. So I think first and foremost, you have to know the job description to figure out who is the ideal person that you need for your team. So organize your job description according to that. That has to come from what is the vision of your practice and what do you need for that role, number one. The second thing is how do we retain that employee? How do we keep them engaged and how do we keep them wanting to stay with us? The big thing right now is retention. So in the event that we get somebody on board, we like them, we train them, and we do all that we can according to what we need for the practice, grow them and give them as much as we can with respect to CE, with respect to training. What do we need to do to acknowledge them? What do we do to need to keep them there, keep them engaged, keep them excited about working at that practice, not another one, right? And then what is it that we need to do to make them understand what we want to do in the future of the practice so that they can fit in with that? How do they contribute with that? What do they contribute now? What can they contribute in the future to make the practice better? So if everybody has skin in the game and making the practice better and being able to fortify a good relationship with patients and each other, I think that's the key thing, to keep that open and make sure that you have structured plans and measurable plans in place to be able to fortify that. I think a lot of times that's what's missed. And I think that's what people need to pay attention to, right? And it has to be customized according to what you need and what you do, right? And where you are, right? Who you serve.
So we can give these templates. Anyone who asks for it, we can absolutely give it to you. But your message is, it's just a template. You do have to go away and you have to do this yourself. So we actually, when we talk about creating, involving your employees and getting them involved, we have another template here for an employee handbook. And so if you are wanting something to help guide you in creating something, and this can kind of lay out how you will promise, or you will recognize your people, and they can understand what their expectations can be of you when it comes to setting those expectations and sharing that vision and meeting with them regularly. You'd have to create it yourself, but we have this template here, absolutely. And there was one other that our team had created, and that is a template for a stand-up meeting. So stand-up meeting, you just touch base at the beginning of each day or once every couple of days, just to go through what the practice is doing on that day. So that's a little bit less of a vision and more of a what are we doing today. But we have these templates available. Our team, after our discussion, Lori, they went away and they created these wonderful templates for our listeners to get. If you are interested in requesting one of these templates, or if you're interested in talking to us, sorry, I'm just going to bring up Lori's contact information and my contact information. And there we go. So there's Lori's contact information. So if you want to talk more with Lori, talk about these templates, talk about what we've discussed today, how can you actually get this happening in your practice? Here's Lori's information. I speak for Lori here when, she'd be happy to hear from you. We also have the Rev Up information here. If you are interested in reaching out to us and getting those templates, we'd love to hear from you as well. We have a few minutes left of today's webinar. So I'm going to bring up Lori's information again and just ask you, our listeners, are there any questions out there for Lori, questions from me, anything that you'd like us to elaborate a little bit more on? I think that while we're waiting for these questions to come up, I'll just sort of summarize. So we're talking about boosting the morale, productivity, and production of your dental staff. Start with your vision. Start with what you want your practice to be like. Bring your team on board. Involve them in the discussion. Understand their strengths, their weaknesses, their goals, where they want to go, what their vision is, and then bring that vision together and be consistent about continuing this drive on an ongoing basis. Have regular meetings with your staff, talk about them and their lives, have touch bases on how things are going. If there's a gap in your staff, take that opportunity to sit down with your team and say, okay, we have a gap. This isn't a bad thing. This is an opportunity. What do we need to add to this team? And then, Lori, you said, train them. When they come on board, take that time to properly train them. Have measurable, achievable training that they can follow. Open your door. Open your ears, eyes. Allow them to come to you if they have questions, if they want to contribute. Lori, I can see we've got a question about to come in. Do you have anything you want to add there?
I'm looking at the chat here. Hang on a second.
Yes, I'll read out the question here. So thank you very much.
Do.
So I find my staff are uncomfortable being singled out for performance reviews. This is a good one. We actually talked about this one. Any suggestions on making staff interviews more comfortable?
Yes. Okay. So a staff interview should be rolled out as it's not just about what are you doing wrong or how are you going to develop. It has to be about what are you bringing now according to the vision of the practice. So how are you contributing so far? So it is based on two pieces. One is acknowledgement of what have you done so far. And the second one is development according to where do you want to go in your professional development. So it's not 100% about how can I be better for you. It's more about how can I be better and how can I expand my knowledge and my expertise in the practice according to what I have right now and what I want to do moving forward. And it's a mutual exchange of value again, where it's like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm willing to do. This is what I want to do in order to benefit the practice. But I think what's a lot of times ignored or not, there's not a lot of attention to is the acknowledgement piece of the performance reviews. Performance reviews should be the two-part. So recognize what your employees are doing and what they bring already, and then talk about how can they develop and what it is that they want to develop, and then see how you can align that with the practice needs at that time, so what the demands of the practice are, and have that as a conversation. I don't know if that helps you, or is there any more questions about that?
I think if I think of what we were talking about earlier with setting the standard, if it's normal for your team to come and talk to you and have that engagement, it's way less scary. Lori, we talked about this earlier in a different discussion. you don't have to call them performance reviews. You said that to me. And I think that that's a really powerful thing, because sometimes we just get caught on the word. And I remember I was once called into the big boss's office, and he messaged me and he said, Beth, I need to talk to you right now. And I thought, oh, geez, I'm being fired. And I totally know that feeling. And I was actually getting a promotion. So sometimes just how you deliver that and schedule that meeting. So with me, I have one-on-one check-ins. That's what I call them. I call them check-ins. They don't necessarily need to be performance reviews, but I check in with them regularly. I think you mentioned earlier in a previous discussion, Lori, you called them development discussions. I think calling them something a little bit nicer might help. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that there's a book that's out that's called Catch People Doing Things Right. So call them into your office when they do things that facilitate what you're looking for. So reward what you want people to do things, and reward them and positively reinforce them. So when somebody does something outside of what's the expectation, call them into the office. I needed to speak to you. Bring them in. And when they come in, they're like nervous. That's typical, right? Just like you said, Beth, in your example. So it's like, bring them in and they're like, oh God, what did I do wrong? Then you say, you know what? I think it was really great that you made that patient feel comfortable. They were afraid of dentistry and they were vulnerable. And the way that you spoke to them, I overheard it. And I thought that was really great, right? And then they walk out, and guess what happens? The whole team surrounds them and like, what happened? What'd they say? What happened?
Yes.
You in trouble? And then you get to explain to them, no, I just got positively acknowledged for something I did right. It's a good thing, right? So
that is really important.
You have to make that environment happen. You have to put forth and work towards building that environment, a culture of recognition and acknowledgement. It's important.
Too often we focus on the negatives, and it's really important to acknowledge the positives, because your staff do some amazing things. We hear it every day on those phone calls. There are some people who calm people right down from being completely anxious and irrational. They talk them down. There are staff who hold a child's hand when they're scared, or chase a toddler down the corridor so that they don't bash into a machine. There's amazing things that people do every day, and everything they do contributes to your reputation and your practice. And I think we see this a lot in Rev Up, because we provide feedback on what we observe in a practice. I'm sure you do too, Lori, where it's, oh, this is happening. They could do this better. They could do this better. And it's always, they have to do better. And if you can take that time to say, this is what you did well, and this was amazing. You did this well. I remember one boss when I was a long time ago, working in the hospital I mentioned, I closed an operatory door. That was the thing I did well. And she got so excited, because nobody ever closes the door. It was one of those ceiling doors where like the air is pushed specifically, so it's a sterile room, and nobody ever closed the door. And she got so excited. And I still remember that. That was probably about 17 years ago, maybe 20. I don't know. And I remember that she got, Beth, you closed the door. Thank you so much. Nobody ever closes this door. And it was such a little thing, but it meant something to me quite a lot, that 20 years later, I remember that moment. So yes, acknowledging the good things they do will make the performance review discussion a lot less scary. You close that gap between the two of you. There's not such a big wall. Very powerful. Oops, we are over time. I'm so sorry. There aren't any more questions though, so that actually works out quite well. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Lori, for coming. Are there any final words, Lori, that you'd like to leave us with?
Well, just from what you just said there, I'd just like to make one point, that the best that you can do with employees in order to engage and to retain them is to empower them by lighting a fire within them rather than under them. So the biggest message I have for leaders and owners.
Uh-oh. Did I lose Lori? Oh, dear.
Align out with what your purpose is and move forward.
Lori,
Are you there?
I think you may have dropped out there. Can you just repeat this? The most
okay, one more
important
time. Okay, real quick. Okay, so quickly, I think that what's most important is in order to be the best leader that you can be, whether you're an office manager or an owner, is to be able to empower your team members and make them understand what their purpose is and what they bring to the practice, and make sure that that aligns with your vision, and able to and to be able to retain them and to keep them happy, engaged, and to keep them at the practice, is to remind them of what their worth is and line that up to what they want to do and what their purpose is with respect to their goals. And I think that that's a good understanding, and that requires communication and taking time to have structured meetings and some of these things that we talked about to put in place. So whether it's performance and development meetings, probationary meetings, making sure you do the right thing for onboarding and recruiting. I think being honest and accurate and being and strategizing those things ahead of time are things that are key elements, and making sure that you customize them according to what your practice expectations are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lori. I really appreciate you coming and joining me, having this discussion. I love talking with you. It's a fantastic discussion. Thank you to our listeners who have joined us. This webinar has been recorded. It will be available to you and sent out to you. If you're interested in those resources, just message us, let us know. I'll just switch over to my contact information there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, RevUp, for hosting. And I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, evening. Thank you so much.